So you can
Okay.
start.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. I'm very sorry not being in the institute today due to a sudden quarantine of one of my child. You know, the period is quite critical, and but of course, I'm very glad to have this seminar and having call here today. And thank you very much for having dedicated some time to this afternoon seminar. Well, when I thought giving a seminar, I wonder what kind of presentation I should have prepared, and being a newcomer to the National Research Council that I joined only in September 2021, I thought the best would have been to provide somehow a snapshot of some of my experiences in the last years, which I think tell something of the work I've been doing in my past period, and I think I am supposed to do even in the next years. You know, I'm not a pure researcher, as Filomena said. I'm what in the scenario is called technologo, which means someone who, in my view, has the competence and the challenge of bridging the gap between scientific knowledge and the way this knowledge can be applied into planning and policy processes. And in my case, such processes are very much focused on the coastal and marine environment, as it is obvious for the scope of the institution. So I will touch a number of experiences I've been dealing with, which are interwoven, interlinked through a common denominator, which is that of maritime spatial planning. Well, my presentation is structured into 6 major points. I will tell something about what maritime spatial planning is, what are the main benefits of MSP, including the support to sustainable blue economy, why the research and the scientific knowledge is essential for MSP, and why we can consider MSP as part of the research agenda. And I will provide some reflections on examples of science to policy, science to society initiatives I've been involved in, and mainly the EU MSP platform at the European level and the Italian MSP process I'm currently involved within. And I would like to conclude with a reflection on the one number of opportunities which are open now for the moment, or will open in the future for transdisciplinary research supporting maritime spatial planning. You know, as often happens, there are several definitions of MSP, but I would say that most of them, if not all of them, really share many common elements. For some of the definition, MSP is more a process. For some others, is more a tool. In my view, is both. It's both a process and tool, with as the objective of plan and locate the human activities at sea. In a way, they contribute to achieve ecological, economic, and social objectives at the same time, and which means that they provide a way of implementing these activities in an efficient, safe, and sustainable way. In the EU, the MSP is legally framed by the European directive on MSP, which was issued in 2014, and which calls the EU member states to approve MSP plans by 2021, indeed by June 2021. And we will soon, in the course of my presentation, what's the status of the Italian process. But why MSP? Why MSP is perceived as particularly important and within the context of the European Union policy frame. It is the main benefits of MSP are summarized in this slide. It is expected to reduce conflicts between different human activities at the sea, and indeed also to provide a way to create synergies. as it defines a transparent and certain legal framework for activities, human activity at the sea, it shall encourage investment. And as many of the problems which MSP deals with have transboundary dimension, it is expected to increase cross-border transboundary cooperation between countries to approach those common problems and cater for common opportunities. And last but not least, it has to support and to contribute to the increased protection of the environment by both increasing the protection of valuable areas and minimizing impacts on natural ecosystems. Of course, MSP doesn't move in a silos, but it is very much linked to a wider framework. And in this wider framework, we can pick up a couple of major international and European initiatives. Definitely that set by the EU SDG goals, the Sustainable Development Goals. You know, there is one specific goal that focus on the marine environment, life below water, and among its targets, also MSP is mentioned as a way to provide sustainable use of marine resources. And the second one is the EU deal, Green Deal, the ambitious packages of policies to transform the EU economy into a sustainable future for the whole European Union. If you have a look at the pillars, at the blocks forming this policy framework, you see that all of them have a strong link to the marine component, and when implementing MSP, they have to be taken into consideration. One of the major scope of the maritime spatial planning is the support to sustainable blue economy. Sustainable blue economy is again an initiative furthered by the European Commission to strengthen the use of the marine resources and therefore the development of maritime activities, both including established and new emerging sectors. It is very important to say that all maritime activities are expected to increase in terms of economic value and employment in the next future, with the exception of oil and gas offshore extraction. And in line with the Green Deal, to make this economic boost sustainable, the Commission issued in 2021 a communication on the sustainable transition of blue economy, which integrate into the blue economy the Green Deal objectives, for example, related to climate neutrality and zero pollution, to the conservation and increased protection of biodiversity, to the improved coastal resilience, and to responsible food production, very much linked to aquaculture development. Among the enabling conditions which are identified by the communication for the satisfaction of this objective, MSP is definitely included as a very important process and tool to put in place. At the Mediterranean level, one very important initiative to be mentioned, which involves very deeply in the National Research Council, is BlueMed. BlueMed is an initiative involving all the countries of the Mediterranean basin, which aims to advance and promote a shared vision for a more, let's say, sustainable Mediterranean Sea, which has also strong and important benefit for local communities. And it includes its own strategic research innovation agenda. You can see here the 13 priority goals set by the agenda, which are very much online and coherent with the objectives set by the Green Deal packages and the Sustainable Blue Economy communication. And among the 13, effective maritime spatial planning is actually considered one of the priority, also in terms of research and innovation. And we'll see shortly after what we mean by research underpinning maritime spatial planning. Why research is important for MSP? It is important because scientific knowledge is highly needed for an informed and robust decision-making process. I mean, the relevance of science-based decision-making is very much strengthened and is very much underlined even by the same EU MSP directive, which is particularly important where we are going to deal with a process that has a medium long-term perspective, and which implies that we need to take into consideration the uncertainty of the future, which is actually unfeasible without robust knowledge, scientific knowledge behind. On the other way around, I think the MSP can valorize the research and the scientific knowledge, providing a way of an application of this knowledge into a policy planning process. And this is actually what is already occurring. If you see here in this slide, the stream of processes occurring at Italian, EU, and Mediterranean level. I wouldn't go very much into details because I think it will get out a little bit out of the scope of the seminar. But we can say that since 2014, so since the issuing of the directive, there is a flow of formal processes involving different countries in the implementation of MSP that in Italy started in 2016, which is currently still ongoing. And you can see here a number of projects, both cross-cutting, cross-sector project and sector-specific projects, which are actually somehow supporting the MSP flow of activities, both at the EU and Italian level. And as I said before, MSP is a long process. It has to deal with medium and long-term perspective, and at the same time is an iterative process. I mean, when we come to a plan, of course, we reach a very important milestone, but the work is not finished. As in any policy planning cycle, after the definition of a plan, there is an implementation phase and very important, the monitoring and evaluation phase that can bring to the plan's revision. So it is essential that the scientific knowledge continuously support the MSP process with updated knowledge in an ongoing flux of information from the research to the policy and planning application. So what kind of knowledge is needed in the MSP process? We can distinguish between what we can call horizontal knowledge and vertical knowledge. By horizontal knowledge, we mean that the kind of scientific research which is needed as a cross-cutting level, transdisciplinary level, to enable MSP occurring. We refer to methodological approaches. A lot has been done already in terms of defining good methodology for MSP implementation, but however, there is still a lot, quite space to work on methodological approaches dealing with specific issues. I will give just as an example, I will mention that the nexus between climate change, climate mitigation, and climate change adaptation and MSP, which is still under investigated even from a methodological perspective. The development of science to policy interface and decision-making support tools, which is very important, as well as the integration of the social dimension into the ecological dimension of MSP, and I'll say a few words at the end of my presentation of this. But there is also very much need of vertical knowledge, knowledge that goes into details on some specific aspect. Of course, there is an issue of data and availability of data, and how to cover still existing gaps in the data helping knowing the sea behavior, And also there is an issue of improving the access to existing data and knowledge through geoportal and platforms. We need to better understand ecosystem functionings, and the way we are affecting those ecosystems through the planning of human activity at sea. That's a very important precondition we can deal without when we do approach the spatial distribution of maritime activities. And there might be also the need for research over some technological aspects, for example, related on new uses of the sea. Just think about the expected explosion of offshore wind farms in the Mediterranean in the next years. There is a lot to do, not only from the perspective of understanding their potential implication for the environment, but also in terms how technologies, for example, can mitigate this kind of impacts. So what I've been doing in my life is just being the interface between science and policy, what is normally called science to policy interfaces, which means being part of processes which involve both scientists and other actors of the policy arena, to not only allow exchanges of information, but really enable the co-evolution and joint construction of the information, the knowledge which is needed for decision making. Indeed, the scope of the work is wider. It's not only limited to science to policy interface, but also involve other aspects like those related to practices, how to support the definition of specific measures, for example, for maritime spatial planning, or even could be for climate change adaptation. That's another field I've been quite involved in. Science to business, how to support enterprises to develop a business opportunity from the use of scientific knowledge. Science diplomacy, I will say a few words later on, so I wouldn't tell much about that for the moment. And science to citizens, and to improve awareness of specific problems. Indeed, this is a topic I haven't been working very much, I haven't covered very much in my career. So as a first example, I will tell you something about the EU MSP platform. This is an initiative framed by the European Commission in 2016, and I've been involved in this initiative between 2016 and 2018. Which has the goal to support member states in implementing the MSP directive. The platform is still in place with other partners. And one of its major tools is the web component of the platform. You can see here some screenshots of this web component. Among the others, for example, it includes a database of knowledge, and which is very much relying on scientific research and scientific knowledge. The database of knowledge includes, for example, methodology, tools, data portal, pilot plans. Here you can see all examples which have been developed by colleagues of the National Research Council and the Marine Science Institute specifically. The goal of the platform is to transform this knowledge in a way that is easily understandable and accessible by users, which are mainly practitioners working in ministries and in regional administrations with hands on the MSP plans. Another component of the UMSP platform, which is also included in the web platform, is this sector-based analysis. What we did, we analyzed all the major sectors which occur in the marine environment to look at the present spatial needs. For example, if we consider aquaculture, this could be access to areas with good water quality, and so identification of those areas for aquaculture activity, their future development and future spatial needs. For example, considering that aquaculture could move further offshore, and a recommendation for MSP to better support this sector and the sustainability of the sector. This kind of work has been done, of course, by a review of the scientific and great literature, but also by interviewing experts in the field, so researchers in the field and stakeholders from the business and the public sector. Still, to complete my presentation of the platform, I will mention the studies I've been collaborating with. There are 4 studies I've been involved, and all of the 4 studies have been really very much targeted to the MSP practitioners. The first one was on the data, MSP data. I think it was a quite important study we did in 2016, which also paved the way to the current thematic expert group on data for MSP, which involves some of the CNR colleagues I'm working currently with. And a second study was on how MSP plan can support blue growth. And a third study was on the analysis of most relevant sectors and conflicts among sectors, which then provided the sector analysis I briefly mentioned in the previous slide, which is also available online. And finally, there was 4 studies on cross-border cooperation in MSP. You know that, as I said, there are a number of problems which are approached by MSP, which are transboundary by nature, and the same directive calls member states to consult bordering countries on the plan a country is developing in a way to reach a common planning, a coherent planning among countries of the shared basin or subsea basin. So we developed this study to try to support countries in this kind of job. All these studies, again, have been developed based on scientific literature and interviews and surveys with experts and other typology of stakeholders. The second example is the Italian MSP process, where that's the frame and the process I'm still working with many colleagues from the institution. Well, the 2014 European directive has been integrated into the Italian law through decrees issued in 2016, which, among the others, established the competent authority for MSP in the Ministry of Infrastructure and Sustainable Mobility. But indeed, the competence or responsibility of MSP implementation in Italy is very much shared among different institutions, different administrations, both at the national and regional level, through the creation of these 2 groups of institutions: the interministerial table, which has more a policy mandate, and a technical committee, which is supposed to be more a technical group of people. The National Research Council, CNR, is very much involved in, as it is one of the members, together with the University U of Venice and Corila, of the scientific team supporting the elaboration of the plan, and specifically the technical committee. And one of the first thing that was done by this governance system was the identification of the maritime areas of reference for the plan. And actually, there are 3 areas the MSP process in Italy is working on, which means that we will have 3 MSP plans. One is the Adriatic, and the other one is the Ionian and Central Mediterranean Sea, and the third one is the Tyrrhenian Sea. The 3 areas are coherent and the same one considered by the MSFD directive. And the geographic scope include the waters between the coastline and the outer limit of the marine waters under Italian sovereignty, which means internal water, territorial waters up to the 12 nautical miles, the ecological protection zone in the Mediterranean Sea, overlapping with the Pelagos Sanctuary and the continental shelf, plus consideration of some land-sea interaction expert to take properly in consideration the dynamics occurring across the coastline. We started from a typical initial assessment phase for the collection of data, their mapping and understanding of the spatial distribution. You can see here some of the maps developed by some of our colleagues. You see here maps on oil and gas extraction, offshore oil and gas extraction, fisheries, and maritime transportation. Then we looked at conflicts among uses and conflicts between human uses and particularly sensible and valuable environmental areas to identify some areas of where to put particular attention in the successive phase of planning in terms of occurring conflicts and occurring high pressures on environmental components. Quite important, we then approached a third phase on the definition of a vision and strategic objectives. Obviously, this involved very much the administrations, the ministries in particular, and we came to 42 strategic objectives, which set the ground for the core of the work we are doing now, which has been partially already developed. And that's the phase 4 on multi-scale strategic planning of the sea. Why multi-scale? Because as I told you, we are considering 3 marine areas, and then zooming into other spatial components. Each of the area is divided in sub-areas. You can see here the Adriatic, for example, which is subdivided into 9 sub-areas. Some of them are onshore, so are delimited by the 12 nautical mile limits. And the planning of these sub-areas is mainly under responsibility of regions. Others are beyond the 12 nautical miles, are so-called offshore sub-areas, and planning of these sub-areas is under responsibility of ministries. In both cases, the scientific team involved with the CNR is very much supporting the planning process in a consistent way. And then zooming within each of the planning unit, we can distinguish, zooming within each of the sub-area, we can distinguish a specific planning unit, which I will tell you a little bit more in the next 2 slides. Once the planning units have been identified, they must be classified according to the methodology we developed into 4 typologies. A generic planning unit, which means a planning unit where all uses are somehow permitted, allowed, of course, under specific regulation. So there is not any kind of priority in the use of this planning unit. While priorities are defined in the second typology of UP of planning unit, here for this typology of planning unit, the plan can provide indication of a priority use, either because the use is already occurring in a consistent way, or because according to the strategic plan, it could be developed in the future. Other uses are allowed, are permitted in this planning units. Without, of course, with specific regulation. Then there is the third typology of planning unit. It's the one we call limited in terms of typology. Those are areas for which a prevalent use is indicated, and other uses may be allowed only with specific limitation. They are normally in a lower number than those allowed in a priority planning unit. And typically it's the case of marine protected area where the prevalent use there is the environmental protection, and other uses in a small number or limited number are allowed, like, for example, sustainable tourism and small-scale fisheries. And finally, we have a full typology, which are the so-called reserved planning units, where only one use is actually foreseen, and other uses are allowed only under very strict conditions. And that's the case, for example, of areas used by the Navy for, I don't know, for defense objectives, like testing operations, like that. So just to give you an example, this is how it looks like on the right part of the slide, the current planning of the onshore area facing the Emilia-Romagna region. You can see here the area is subdivided into 10 planning units. Moving from the onshore to offshore, you see that closer to the coast, you have an orange belt where the priority use is tourism, for the obvious implication of this activity for the Emilia-Romagna region and its importance in terms of economic revenue for the region. Then moving a little bit offshore, we have another purple couple of planning units where the priority use is aquaculture, and other two planning units which are different from that one. There is one in the south combining different uses. Priority, that's the number 8, where priority uses are aquaculture, tourism, and natural protection, and another one close to the Reno outlet, where the reserved use in this case is defense, being that an area which is used by the defense system to test operation and other kind of operation. Then we have further offshore a dark red area, which is mainly for priority use for energy. It's the area where there is high concentration of offshore gas platform, and it's also an area which can be strategically important for the possible development of offshore wind farms. And the northern, then there is an area which has as priority natural protection, and again, defense, being the area, the newly established marine natural tourism site across the border of Emilia-Romagna region and Veneto region. Well, just to conclude with a couple of examples, not only cross-sector, cross-cutting projects are quite important in supporting MSP. There are also sector-based projects which are relevant. Here, this a project that I was working in 2021. The scope of the project was to define guidelines for sustainability of cruises and recreational boating in the Med, and we developed, we identified, thanks also to stakeholder engagement, a number of challenges, a number of sustainable objectives. And for each of the challenge, we provided a list of sustainable practices, scanning of the gray and scientific literature, and again, checking these practices with the stakeholders. Not surprising, a number of practices are spatially based, are very much in line with the goals and with objectives of maritime spatial planning. Another example is a project called Muses, in which together with the National Research Council, at that time I was working in TEDIS, but we collaborated with the National Research Council. We investigated the concept of multi-use in European seas. So the combination of different uses in the same space, sharing either the same marine area or the same marine resources. We made an investigation of this concept and feasibility of multi-use in the 5 European seas, and as well on case studies. Here you can see a paper we developed from the Mediterranean analysis, where it came out that the most promising multi-use combinations for the Mediterranean comes from tourism and are therefore tourist-driven. And here you can see examples of location of opportunities for the development of this multi-use with fisheries, environmental protection, aquaculture, and preservation and valorization on the water cultural heritage sites. Very briefly on science diplomacy, which I mentioned at the beginning when I entered into this central block of my presentation. In my view, science diplomacy can be defined as the use of scientific knowledge and research in supporting cooperation on common on elements of common interest in a given geographic area. And for example, I've been working with the Barcelona Convention System, and specifically with the center of the Barcelona Convention System focusing on the ICZM protocol, which is the protocol it's a legal protocol calling countries in establishing integrated coastal zone management plans and strategies. And I worked together with them for the development of the conceptual framework for marine spatial planning, which is the formal document, the only document I say integrating MSP into the frame of the Barcelona Convention System, which is quite important because the Barcelona Convention System, as you know, does not only involve EU countries, but also a wide number of countries, of non-EU countries, and including non-European ones. So it's the way of spreading MSP in countries which do not belong to the EU. The document itself is quite easy in terms of contents, but the negotiation it took was quite long, more than 2 years, to come to this document, which again was possible to be developed only thanks to the contribution of knowledge, scientific knowledge on the topic. So what are the future needs? And I'm really coming to the conclusion of my seminars with this slide and a couple of conclusive ones. Future research needs for MSP or to support MSP. I see again an horizontal dimension of future research and a vertical dimension of future research. Horizontally, there is definitely the need to further develop data sharing platforms and also improve the use of existing ones. There is quite a wide number of platforms, and we need to better use those platforms into the formal process of, in this case, maritime spatial planning. There will be in the next future quite a lot of activities on what we call game changers for MSP in terms of data management. And so the use of big data and the development of digital twins of the oceans, which will allow really very much to digest a wide amount of data and to make them to the service of MSP. We need to still work on tools for MSP and for their simplified operationalization into the MSP process. You know that there is a group of people in colleagues I'm working with in CNR, who is working very much on tools. They have been developing tools for cumulative impact assessment and for conflict analysis among human activity at sea. I see other possibility on the development of tools for example, assessment of marine ecosystem services within MSP, or the evaluation of synergy and multi-use among different human activities, or dynamic stakeholder engagement into the MSP process. Very important, there is quite room for research on the investigation of the nexus between climate change and MSP, and more widely on how MSP can contribute to the Green Deal's objectives, and on integrating into MSP social science and humanity aspects. You know, while planning environmental economic aspects are quite well considered and perceived into MSP that the social and science and humanity aspect are very, very much a novelty. And here I'm referring both to the need of understanding how the MSP and the benefits of the MSP process shall be heavily distributed among all the different countries and all the different segments of the population. How the local communities can really perceive MSP choices in terms of improved well-being. And again, there is a vertical dimension of research, and that shall investigate how MSP can support sustainable blue economy and specific sectors of the blue economy. And if we look at the Mediterranean, I see some clear tracks we shall look at in the next future. And those are, of course, only some examples. There might be others. The development of offshore renewable energy production in the basin, the expansion of aquaculture also in offshore area, the increase of maritime transport, and at the more local level in the Adriatic Sea or another specific region, the commissioning and of obsolete offshore and gas platform, and their possible reuse, and the issue of multi-use I briefly introduced previously. But again, there might be others that from a sector perspective needs to be further investigated. Just a brief mention of this topic, which is very much linking to of my recent time interest, climate action MSP. This is quite an important topic, notwithstanding it is presently only very few MSP plans are considering climate change explicitly and at the proper detail level. This has two folds, I would say, objectives. Of course, from a certain perspective, MSP must play an important role in supporting carbon neutrality and climate change mitigation on different sectors. And at the same time, they shall also support climate change adaptation of the coastal and marine environment. And it's very important, the MSP, from a process-wise perspective, that MSP plans, MSP process include climate change aspects from the very beginning, in a way that they really become climate-proof plans and they are progressively updated. So you see, in my view, there is a lot to do in the field, but very likely we have plenty of opportunities, a sea of opportunities, I would say, not only because of a number of cooperation frame which have been put in place internationally and the Mediterranean level and some Mediterranean scale. You see here some are mentioned in the upper part of the slide, but even because there's a lot of funding opportunity which are already out or which will come in the very next future, which mention definitely MSP as an important component of transdisciplinary research. Of course, Horizon Europe is one of them, and another very big content is the Interreg program, which will come out in the next years, and the European Maritime Fishery and Aquaculture Fund. Indeed, we are currently working on some proposal for calls funded by this NFAF fund on a specific aspect of MSP implementation after the plans have been developed and approved in most of the countries. And of course, there is the national plan for resilience in Italy, which also provides a focus on how research and innovation can support the sustainable management of marine resources, also for the MSP. But of course, working in MSP cannot be done alone. It really needs transdisciplinary research and continuous networking and collaboration with other colleagues, with colleagues who are focusing on specific aspects. So I'm very glad of having had opportunity to give this seminar and to make knowing me a little bit better than you knew. And of course, I'm very open to any questions that you may have now, today, or even later on in the next days. You know, my office is at very close to the entrance, the main entrance of the National Research Council, and the door is open. So come in, ask question, and provides way of developing common opportunity for future activities. Thank you very much.